Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for remarks and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Melton.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Everybody have a seat. And I'm just going to be real quick because we have a proclamation that I want to spend most of our time on this morning. But because it's 1 week away from the primary, I'm asking all of you, please exercise your constitutional right and your community responsibility to vote a week from today. And if you think you might not be able to make it to the polls, you can go to the Election Commission, which is right at 120th and Center. You can walk in and you can cast your vote anytime between now and then. And if you have an absentee ballot, there are ballot boxes all over, or you can take it into the Election Commission yourself. Wouldn't suggest mailing it right now because it may not get there in time. So that's all I want to say is just go vote. I've spent a lot of time working on various campaigns. There's a lot of good people out there to vote for. So just do your research and find the person that fits most closely to how you feel. So vote next Tuesday, and I know that's what Rich Pauls would want as well. So.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. We look forward to hearing your testimony on our many items we have here today. Please turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate. We do have a commemoration of our dear friend and colleague Rich Pauls to start our agenda here today. First, we'll have Councilman Don Rowe, who represents his district, District 5, to read a proclamation, and then we'll have council members offer any thoughts or reflections they have about him. And I want to recognize the family who's here today. We appreciate them coming down to be with us. And I invite them down to the podium if they'd like to hear these reflections. We have Morgan Moorfield and her kids, Rich's grandkids who are here, Jake Pauls, his son, and Beth Ostiak Smith. You're welcome to come down too, yeah.
Do the kids want to come down?
Kids are welcome too, unless that's too risky. You can stand right behind the podium there if you want. Great to see everybody.
Well, it's an honor for me. I want to use the microphone. It's an honor for me to read this proclamation in honor of your father and your friend. Whereas Rich Pauls was born in Jewell, Kansas in 1943, received his doctorate of education from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and lived in Millard for many years. And whereas Rich was the founding principal of Aldrich Elementary and served as an administrator of the Millard Public Schools for 32 years, remaining a strong advocate for education and always brought energy, vision, and innovation to inspire students to learn. And whereas Rich was first elected to the state legislature in 2004, serving 2 terms from 2005 until 2013, and was reelected in 2021, and was a member of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee, the Revenue Committee, and the Education Commission of the states, and sponsored legislation which doubled the amount of state sales tax that convention centers and arenas in Omaha, Lincoln, and Ralston can collect. And whereas Rich served 2 terms on Omaha's City Council from 2013 until 2020, representing District 5 in Southwest Omaha, ensuring his constituents in Millard could count on him to act on their behalf, often focusing on the nuts and bolts of city government, including potholes, street repair, trash collection, asking unpopular questions before making decisions and voting. And whereas Rich was a dedicated public servant and a great man who was committed to improving his community, his district and state, first as an educator and then through elected service, always working to find common ground between urban and rural Nebraska while taking care to never take himself too seriously. Now therefore, be it resolved that the City of Omaha officially designates May 3rd, 2022, Rich Pauls Day in Omaha, Nebraska. In witness here whereof, we have set our hands and caused the official seal of the City of Omaha to be affixed on this third day of May 2022.
Thank you. Councilmember Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. I had the great pleasure of serving for almost 8 years with Rich on the city council. It was a fabulous night. I remember in 2013, he and Franklin Thompson and I went over to Gene Stothart's celebration party, and the four of us, you know, it was when Gene was first elected as mayor as well. And, you know, we just embraced, we had a great time. I still have the picture of the four of us, and I think Jean still has that one up in her office today. It was just a great, exciting time. And I spent many years talking to Rich. He used to give me a hard time. In fact, one of the things, he was always known for wanting to get rid of tax exemptions down in the legislature, and he always would point at me and he was like, the lawyers need to be first, Amy. The lawyers need to be first. And, you know, he just always made me smile, no matter what. We could even be having a tense conversation or disagreeing on something, but Rich was always able to break the ice. And when he would give, when it was his turn to give the talk at the beginning of council meetings, he always had props. I think we had glasses. I think I still have those. I should have brought them out here. He gave us glasses because he said that we might need them because we didn't see all the small print and all the things that were attached. And Rich always printed out the attachments, and he had them, and he was always reading them and paying attention. But he was a great servant through his whole life, just as a teacher, as a principal. And I know when he was running for the legislature, all the young Republicans, this mass group, everyone wanted to be on Rich's campaign because they loved Rich. They just interacted with him because even though he was a lot older than they were, he just really connected. And I think that's how I'll always remember Rich. And it won't be, I did show it, but he was such a jokester. Pete Festerson will remember this, but we came in, I think it was 2015. It was within that first year or two. And there was this giant blow up turkey. It's literally the size of a garage. So I'm gonna show this to the boys, and I wanna get your address because I wanna send it to you guys. I've been putting this turkey up. We named him Richard, and we put him up outside on Thanksgiving every year. And by the way, this turkey took up my entire office in city council. When I went walking in, he had it blown up, and I just started laughing, you know, and it said like, happy birthday, Amy, to like my favorite turkey or something like that. That's what he called me. He just always was a dear guy. And so I just sent him a picture of this past Thanksgiving. Said, happy Thanksgiving, we are still enjoying Richard. And his response was, like that problem child, I never go away. Enjoy the day. I'm gonna miss Rich. I really enjoyed serving with him, and I really am sorry for your loss because he brought a lot of joy to all of us. So now I'm gonna start crying.
Thank you. Councilman Royal, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I never did have the opportunity to serve with Rich, but he served for my family. And I'm just thankful that I voted for him every time he ran for office, whether it be in the legislature or city council. He was my guy. He lived up the street and always represented our district, Millard and Southwest Omaha, well. And we too will miss him dearly.
Thank you. Councilman Harding.
Councilmember Melton brought up something I too remember is that Rich would often have props when making his opening comments when it was his turn. And I remember one time, I think it was a box of cereal that he had. And it was to whether it was to make a point or deliver a morsel of wisdom, that Rich would find the usual or the unusual in order to deliver his point. And I really respected Rich's ability to find those morsels and find ways to connect with his message or connect his message to the people to hear what he was saying. And yes, he was a jokester, but he was also incredibly serious. And I think I said this, Council President Festerson and I were at a luncheon later that morning that it was announced that Rich had passed. And I think I had commented about, and I've had even more time to think about this, but what Rich meant to the city of Omaha through his service on city council and to the state of Nebraska with his service to the citizens of the state of Nebraska. We've lost truly a unique voice, and it was my honor to serve on this council with him and get to know Rich as a person. And he will be missed, and I grieve for your family and the friends of Rich Pauls.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I mean, Rich was a great guy. I'm gonna try to keep this as uplifting as I can. So I'm gonna wait a second. I'm gonna go back.
Well, we'll give you a breather. Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Condolences to the family for your dad's loss and your friend's loss, and my colleagues as well. I mean, you guys obviously had the pleasure of serving with Rich. I only knew him, I met him a couple times, but a couple stories that come to mind. He was a longtime educator like my brother in Millard, and speaking to colleagues and staff before I ever knew Rich was even sick, I go, hey, what was this Pauls guy like? And from my brother that served with him in Millard to colleagues, always great things to say genuinely about Rich. And I think that says a lot about him. And I attended last week's LB 1024 signing with Senator Wayne and Senator McKinney and others. The governor was there. And I think it's maybe fair to say that Senator Pauls and Senators Wayne and McKinney aren't aligned politically, but the things that Senator Wayne said were very striking to me. When he acknowledged the passing of Rich, and he said, Senator Pauls got on board right away with LB 1024. That didn't do anything for Millard where he represented, but Senator Pauls knew that $330-something million of investment in North and South Omaha was the right thing to do. Again, it didn't represent that district, but he was there saying, hey, Wayne, hey, McKinney, where are you guys at on this? We got to get this bill moving. So I think that is what I take from not having the pleasure of knowing Rich, but he stood for everything that was good to try to help others the best he could. You have my condolences.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Good afternoon. While I did not have the distinct pleasure of meeting Mr. Pauls, I do know that he was a public servant, and for that, I'm indeed grateful. I'm sure the city of Omaha is grateful as well. You do have my greatest sympathy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to start with a couple stories because obviously you've heard, and you know how Rich was. He liked to joke, he liked to play around, but then he met me, and I certainly like that as well. So back in 17 when we were first elected, I sat right there, and Rich sat right there. And earlier in the day, and maybe I shouldn't be telling this story, but I'm going to anyway because it's funny.
Let's do it.
And it's one of the few I can tell. And we were in a committee meeting, and he said a word, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I didn't know what it meant. Rich is an educator. His vocabulary is very good. So I went and looked it up. I came back in his office, and I said, I'm going to use that word today. He said, where? I said, in the meeting. He goes, on what? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So I don't remember the word, but I used it somehow on our agenda. And for about the next 2 months, he gave me a word every day. Or every week, I'm sorry, every Tuesday. And most people don't know, but I incorporated it into the agenda. And he just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And it really broke the ice with us because that's who Rich was. He was serious when he had to be serious, but he also liked the gamemanship of what we do. So I repaid him quite a bit. We would leave on Tuesdays, and certainly Rich and I had we both liked the dive bars, I'll just say it. A place where we could out dive each other on a Tuesday after council. And He knew a lot of the South Omaha bars like I did, probably because he had some connections in South Omaha, and we always had a cocktail, and it was great because we never discussed policy. It was always personal, and as I said, he was an educator, but he was also a leader, and people like Rich, who are leaders, it's not, hey, I got elected, listen to what I'm saying, follow what I'm doing. It was the human qualities he had as a leader that really drew me to him. And if you knew his story about how he grew up, a lot of challenges, high poverty, he overcame a lot of stuff. And it wasn't that he was an overachiever, he was a born leader. And he had them qualities that really made him survive in life. And obviously he did that through Millard Public Schools. Obviously, I don't think he ever lost an election. He was reelected a lot for many different offices because everybody liked Rich. And that's what we really need this day and age, is the human qualities of being leaders to make decisions for the better of our city. I will tell you, one time we left a dive bar and he was gonna head back to Millard, and we were both hungry, and I said, well, Rich, just come over to my house. You know, my wife, she expects you're gonna be there. You know, we're gonna eat, we got a plate ready for you. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna intrude. I'm not coming over. I'm like, no, my wife Aubrey knows you're coming. Come on over, Rich. You know, let's have a cheeseburger together, whatever the family's having. I didn't know. She didn't know we were coming. And if you know Rich, I mean, he's kind of set in his ways. He liked his places. He liked his things. And we show up, and my wife Aubrey's like, hey, Rich, I didn't know you were coming. Let me get a plate for you. And he looked at me, and it was that look right there that sealed the deal, that for the remainder of the time that we were together, that it was game on for us. And again, it's people like Rich that make this thing we call life move on. Chris Jerem said it best. He always said, well, it doesn't matter what we want on the agenda, it's what P Square wants, because P Square has the votes, which was Paul's and Palermo on certain items we have. And but the problem was Rich would never tell you the way he was voting, so it made it tough. Although we think we had the upper hand, we really didn't know. There's no doubt we have best friends in different facets of our life, and Rich was truly, if those here didn't know, he was my best friend on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just finish by saying it's great to have you here, especially the grandkids. And Jake, I have to say the likeness is amazing to your dad. I can really see him living on through you. And I would just add, Rich, of course, was a dedicated public servant, both an elected official and as an educator, and that was very apparent. Anytime an issue involving kids came before the council, he was super engaged on that and got it from the very first moment. He did enjoy stirring the pot, and he was unpredictable, but always the voice of reason and had a great sense of humor, too. He did love to have a drink in a dive bar. He did love to meet constituents in greasy little diners. I think every week he would always tell us a story about that. He always had the most colorful socks all the time, and definitely a jokester, but always fought for the little guy, and especially for small business. I know he felt strongly about that and everything he did. And I know he loved the city council, but I know he really loved the legislature. And so we were all sad to see him leave here, but pleased he was reelected to serve in Lincoln. And I know upon his return, he decried a little bit the polarization he found in the body. And I think that's a message for us all, too. He was a voice of reason and moderation, and I think that was an important point he was making by doing that and serving those last couple of years in Lincoln. And he had a major accomplishment just in the last few weeks for the city of Omaha. Our priority legislation this year was a financing mechanism that funds the CHI Health Center. And his bill passed and will allow us to expand that facility and renovate that facility for many years to come, as well as provide additional funding for North and South Omaha projects through what's called a turn-back mechanism. So we were very grateful for his work on that, and it was neat to see that get accomplished just in the last few weeks. The last thing I would say is I also want to thank him for introducing me to Saving Grace Food Rescue. and that's where Beth and I do some work. I serve on her advisory board, and Rich, I think, preceded me and convinced me to join Beth and do that. This is a very worthy nonprofit in the metropolitan area that feeds the hungry and prevents food waste. A really important mission that Rich and I found very worthy, and I'm pleased to continue to serve on that, and we'll be thinking about him when I do. So with that, I know the family does not want to speak today. A few words, maybe like their father, but we do want to thank you for being here, and I do want to present you with this proclamation, and we want to thank you for sharing him with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk.
Item 6, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Evergreen located southeast of 168th and Military Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
This item was laid over from our March meeting and is advertised for public hearing today. So we will offer anyone here to speak on this item the opportunity to do that, but the applicant has requested a 60-day layover, and that's our intention to do that today. So I would encourage folks to wait until that time. Having said that, though, I will call up if there's any proponents that want to speak today on number 6. Seeing none, any opponents? I will not close public hearing, but take a motion. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. One public hearing can be held for items 7 through 12 for Elmwood Townhomes located southeast of 54th and Leavenworth Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 7 and 8, ordinances to rezone this property from R435 District, R535 District, and GO District to R5 District and GO District. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department. Item 9, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department. Item 10, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat. Item 11, a resolution to approve the final plat. B is communication and support. C is amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department. Item 12, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearings and votes on items number 7 through 12 are today. We'll take the public hearings together, and the items will need separate votes going forward. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the City Council. Todd Swarzek, Noddle Companies, 2285 South 67th Street. I'm not sure how much you want me to explain the project, considering the TIF vote was a couple of weeks ago, but I am here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thank you. Any other proponents today? Please come down.
First city council meeting. So, my name's Brad Thompson. I live at 5411 Marcy Street. On 54th and, well, I'm sorry, yeah, 54th, 55th, and Leavenworth. There's 3 homes that have been a blight on our neighborhood, and I know that everyone is very happy that those are going to be going away. A few years back, they put in a bicycle lane on Leavenworth Street. So these lanes converge, and I've seen wrecks there. And my concern is public safety, really. I feel like if they could utilize the street light that's on, what is that, 52nd and 53rd and Leavenworth, the one that heads into, what's the Maxine Walker building? Yeah. I think it would be a much safer thing. Also, because the way it's laid out, if the residents come in, and there's like 19 units, I think, if they come down 55th Street in the wintertime, I watch cars slide back. It's kind of dangerous. My only concern, like, I want this project to go through. It's just, I don't want to see people get hurt. And I feel like I just had to say my piece with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see if that can get addressed. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm familiar with that area, and as I was sitting in the dental chair just a week or so ago, looking at 3 small homes just across the street, and I had a little discussion with the guy that owns doing my teeth. So he thought, "What do you think those homes are blighted? They might be vacated, but do you think this little area is blighted?" He said he didn't think so, but he wasn't aware of this. So here we are again. There's 5 or 6 things here, moving from this to that. High rises, I guess it's all about. And pretty soon we'll be hearing about TIF. And pretty soon we'll be hearing about moving from 54th and Leavenworth probably down across Saddle Creek to join up with UNMC, so that we can justify these big buses for one thing and moving people by bus instead of scooters or cars. Joining up to help the urban core, I guess it is. It maybe goes over past Farnham Street from there. But, you know, not everything can be blighted. If it's usable, it shouldn't be blighted, unless it's for somebody, I don't know, private developers want the land for next to nothing, I guess. So what's to keep you from coming all the way towards my house over on the other side of Dodge Street? I'm against this because it's not telling us what's coming down the road. You'll vote on it today, you'll come back next week with an amendment, and we won't be able to say anything about it. You'll approve it today, amend it next week, and we'll have TIF. So I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings are closed.
Motion to support agenda item 7.
7 and 8 together. There's a motion, a second on 7 and 8. Todd, could you just, for 1 second, do you want to address the concern that was brought up by the resident that supports the project but just had a concern about the street there?
Sure. So each of the units will have a 2-car garage. We don't know if they'll both be utilized or not, but we had talked to Ryan Haas in Public Works about this, and the effect of 20 single-family houses on that intersection is going to be negligible, considering that people are not leaving at 8 a.m. every day. People are not returning home at 5 p.m. every day. It's much more staggered now. So the effect of this project on that particular piece of Leavenworth, it's not going to be impactful on it at all. I guess as someone who utilizes that street fairly frequently, I can see the concern. I think it's probably due a little bit to the speed of the traffic moving west, and the merging happens pretty quickly when those lanes combine, but I'm not sure that that has anything to do with our specific project.
Okay. And then timeline, if these are approved today, tell us about when things start happening and when they're completed.
Sure. So we are working with Habitat for Humanity's deconstruction program to deconstruct the existing residences along the street. We can start that tomorrow, but we're waiting for approval from Habitat on that. So that process will begin fairly quickly. We have 1 resident remaining. Throughout the process, we've been in contact with the renters who were in the duplex properties and had given them stipends for moving, each of them. 1 resident remaining will be moving out toward the end of May. So as the deconstruction happens on the houses facing Leavenworth, that will kind of move down after she leaves. And then demolition should begin sometime in mid-June to early July, and then construction to immediately follow. Our timeline right now there are 4 buildings on the site, 4 separate buildings with each containing several townhomes within each structure. And we believe that the first will be completed within 9 months. It's a little bit optimistic, but our general contractor is telling us that he thinks that we can get there, with the entire project completed within about a year. So from the start of demolition, we'll call it July 1st, we hope to be completed with the project and hopefully sold out by September of 2023.
Great. Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Ms. Melton? Yeah.
Thank you. What, can you just remind me, and Jay may have mentioned this, but I don't have my notes. What are these townhomes? Are they gonna be rentals or are they gonna be for sale, for single family? And what's kind of the amounts?
Sure. So they are for sale, subdivided lots. And so each one will be, a buyer will be able to go to a bank and obtain traditional financing like a single family house. There are three bedroom, with one of those bedrooms being a flex space where it could be an office or a gym, I suppose. So 3 bed, 3 bath, 2-car garage, about 1,700 square feet. Our target demographic is honestly people who probably are affiliated with UNMC, considering the number 11 bus stop is within 100 feet of the property, which also could address Brad's point a little bit on this specific project. We do envision people being able to jump on that bus that comes every 10 minutes in the AM rush and the PM rush, to be able to access UNMC instead of driving 15 blocks and then parking and then walking 4 blocks. It kind of makes sense. So we're anticipating that demographic of UNMC employees would be maybe the purchasers of this type of project.
Okay. Well, we're just, we're always talking about affordable housing. Is this something that?
Oh.
And when I say affordable, it's just something that, if I'm 30 and I want to start my family and I want to be able to purchase a home, is this something that, maybe I would be able to afford?
Yeah, well, we think that with the dual income at UNMC that it is affordable for, at that level. We're looking at about $475 in price for these. The average home price, new build home price in Omaha now is above $400,000. And that's kind of the suburban 300 lot sort of development. So we have no economy of scale on this. Our construction costs are very high, and interest just went up. But we're at about that 475 mark, which is not unusual for the houses north of Leavenworth all the way through Dundee in that general area right now.
Okay, so they're comparable to the cost of the houses in the surrounding area?
Yeah, not to the south, but to the north, I would say yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We had a motion and a second on the floor, which I think needs a revision, right?
For number 8. Number 7 and 8. 7 and 8 together for the amendment of the whole to support 7 and 8.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Is there a motion on number 9?
A motion on number 9 to support the amendment of the whole.
Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Number 10.
Motion to support number 10.
Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 10 is approved 7-0.
And number 11.
Motion to support number 11 amendment of the whole.
Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And number 12.
Motion to support number 12, and I just wanted to comment if I may. When this process started, there was some outreach from constituents and the Exarban Elmwood Neighborhood Association. And I want to commend Mr. Noddle, whose development this is, and Todd as well. I met with you in your office early on and helped me understand what was taking place in the process of this. And Ms. Bauer, the president of the Exarban Elmwood Neighborhood Association, sat down with Mr. Noddle and your team and worked out some things that they wanted in this project, and you guys included that. So I think that's a good example of the neighborhoods having some dialogue with the developer and trying to get things that will fit in that they thought that they like. So I appreciate your efforts on that. Thanks.
Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved, 7-0. Item 13, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located at 6603 L Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 13 is approved, 7-0. Item 14, an ordinance to rezone property located at 1808 Sailor Street from GI District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 14 is approved, 7-0. Item 15, an ordinance to rezone property located at 2316 Madison Street from GI District and HI District to GI District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 15 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 15 is approved, 7-0. Items 16 and 17 can be considered together for property located at 10910 Mill Valley Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 16, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the ACI 3 overlay district to incorporate this property into that district. Item 17, a resolution to approve a large project special use permit to allow development over 10 acres in size.
Public hearing and vote on number 16 and 17 are today. Proponents, please.
Sean James with the law firm of Smith, Slusky, Porn, and Rogers, 3555 Farnham Street, Suite 1000. Now here to answer any questions on behalf of the applicant.
Great. Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 7-0. Item 18, to consider a Class C liquor license for Wave Bistro located at 4002 North 144th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom. We'll get you off mute here in a second. Okay, that should work. Just your name and address for the record. Let's see, we're having a hard time getting your audio there. One more second, we'll try it again. Are you on mute on your end by chance? It doesn't seem like it, but we'll do this. We'll keep moving. We'll see if we can't fix the audio situation. But we know you're the applicant, and we have your address. We know you're present.
So I frequent Wave Bistro. Actually, I enjoyed a fabulous dinner with my husband and son there on Thursday night. They're just looking for an upgrade. So they're there, and although they're on mute, I would support if you would leave it open, ask for any opponents or proponents, even if we can't hear them. They're great owners. They're extremely friendly. Their service is fabulous, and their food is good. So if you ever want to come out to Westo off 144th and Maple, they're just looking for an upgrade. So
Agreed. Any other proponents that want to speak today on number 18? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
I'll move to approve.
Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 18 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you, it was approved.
Item 19, to consider a Class C liquor license for Charlie's on the Lake located at 4150 South 144th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Also, we have the applicant by Zoom. We'll get you off mute here in a second, I think. Okay, try that, Steve. Are you with us there, Steve? I think you're off mute, but we're not hearing you. So I think this is probably a similar situation. I'll continue with other proponents who might be here today on number 19. Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Rowe.
Well, this happens to be in my neighborhood, so, and I've known Steve for many years and appreciate the way he operates both of his businesses, and so I would like to move for approval on the resolution.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 19 is approved, 7-0. Item 20, to consider a Class C liquor license for Moots located at 8725 Shamrock Road. Is communication from the Planning Department regarding permit for the outdoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue. Appearing today on behalf of the applicant. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 7-0. Item 21, to consider a Class D liquor license for Vinton Street Tobacco located at 1602 Vinton Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Michael Polk, 2712 South 87th Avenue, here with the owner, Mr. Haile Biru, to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Second, roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 21 is approved, 7-0. Item 22, to consider a liquor license change the location application for Kiewit Cafe to be located at 1450 Mike Fahey Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 22 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom. All right, should be off mute there if you want to try it.
Hello, Brian Sherbara, 716 North 155th Street in Millard.
Great. Here to answer questions?
Here to answer questions if you have any. Yes.
All right, great. We went 1 for 3 on the Zoom today. Any other proponents today on number 22? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 22 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
We will be removing items number 34, 36, and 42 from the consent agenda. So right now, we'll have the public hearings on items 23 through 33, 35, and 37 through 41. If you wish to address any of these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132, Omaha, 68132. A little hard of hearing. Can't hear you, Pete, because I'm behind the counter. I'm not sure which ones you're pulling out.
We pulled off 34, 36, and 42.
Okay. I am opposing number 33 for now. Number 37, and maybe a few others, we'll see. But affordable housing plan, I'd like to know what is the impediment to the Affordable Housing Action Plan and the Fair Housing Law. It doesn't describe whatever it is that's impeding the process on this. But what exactly is affordable housing? We just heard a few minutes ago that some of these townhomes are gonna be affordable, but they're basically for people that make over $400,000. So is this another one of those that, in conjunction with the, I've forgotten the name of the organization that gets money from the county for affordable homes. So I guess until we know a little more about it, I'm against it.
Thank you. Anyone else on these items today? Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Thank you. I'll second that. Ms. Milton has her light on.
Thanks. I just wanted to make it clear because I did get a couple emails on number 33, the Affordable Action Plan. And just this morning, I got the email that listed the 7 locations where they're going to have public meetings. And Mr. Fansel, I don't know if you want to address this, but part of coming up with the plan, which we're, by the way, mandated to do by state law, we have to have the plan submitted or we'll be in violation of the law. So if you're against it, you need to go complain to the legislature because they're the ones that are making us do it. Be that as it may, though, to do it, we want to do it right. And so public input is the key component of coming up with the best plan. So they have scheduled 7 meetings throughout, one in each one of our city council districts. Mr. Fanslaw, do you want to add anything to that?
Dave Fanslaw, City Planning. You're correct and accurate on your assessment of why we're doing the open houses, and the first one was last night. It was in Councilman Bagley's district. I believe he was in attendance. We have one, we had one yesterday, we have one tonight, we have one Wednesday night and Thursday night. We have 2 next week and 1 the following week for open houses for people to come in and ask questions. There's no presentation. It is just at an open house. We have tables set up where the public can come in and ask questions and get some answers to any questions they might have. We also have listening sessions and smaller group sessions with experts in the industry, developers, builders, engineers. So we're trying to touch all parts of the community as we go through this process.
And so the open house, will you accept comments too?
Yes.
And so where can they find, I mean, I have it in my email, so anyone can contact me, but is that on the Omaha City Planning's website?
It is, yes.
So if you just Google Omaha City Council, go to the planning department, you can find a list of all those locations and the times?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that out there and let more people know that there's a lot of public engagement in regards to this plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Councilmember Melton, I appreciate you bringing that up. I did attend last night at UNO, and I encourage, that was the first of the 7 they've done. And there was subject matter experts. They had great displays and lots of question and answer sessions for each of the tables that were set up. So I think it's a good process if people want to get educated on what this is all going to look like. They can take their time and answer any of your questions. So again, I encourage the public to attend these, and lots of good information, and we're all learning this, but I think that's a good step, one of many that we can all take part in and have our voices heard, and then they'll put this thing together and it'll get to the council in time. But I commend everybody that was there last night. It was in spite of the rain, it was a well-attended event. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the lights, there's a motion and a second to approve items 23 through 33, 35, and 37 through 41. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 34, a resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with Match in the total amount of $11,167,861.19 for Match to administer and distribute ERAP funds to assist Omaha citizens with rental and utility assistance due to COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. We have a public hearing and vote on number 34 today. We asked the Planning Department, Mr. Lukash, to give a brief overview of this item today, and so we'll start with him and proponents.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bill Lukash, Omaha Planning Department. I have a guest here. I'll let her introduce herself.
Heather Tomzak with Match 6001 Dodge Street.
Yeah, and so what this is a while back, the Treasury made available another round of funding for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We asked for $22 million. We received just over $11 million, $11,167,000. These funds can be used until September of 2022, unless the Treasury decides to extend that until the end of 2022, so December of 2022. Not to be confused with ERA 2 funds, which have a longer shelf life of 2025. Match would operate this program as they've done. So far, we have used over $50 million of our total of $100 million given to the city of Omaha. That's kind of an overview. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Other proponents on number 34?
Excuse me. Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I support this federal funding. Accept the money so you can help the residents here. I think it's a modern miracle that the U.S. Senate would dole out money like this. I think everybody has responsibility, and I think your responsibility is to approve this funding and also see if you can get more funding to respond to the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Willie Hamilton, 4200 North 30th Street. I'm definitely in support of this issue. It has helped so many people through our pantry and the work that we do. And Matt has been a big help in making that happen. So I think it should be increased because the need is even more greater. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your work with that. Any other proponents today? See none. Any opponents?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. We have a problem with the fundings that's not coming into North Omaha. And last time I talked to you, Mr. Fredrickson, you was telling me about Jocelyn Castle. And can you set aside some money to upgrade Jocelyn Castle? I spent the summer there studying some Thomas Edison programs. So we're having some problem with the funding of our community. So can you someone start directing some money that direction?
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm basically opposed to this because it doesn't say how much of that money is going to go to the people that need rent or utility assistance, and it does not say whether any of that money goes to people that own properties that are landlords, but they have to pay the utility bills and they have to pay when renters leave or evacuate. Is there any money for landlords? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 34? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Bill, quick question for you.
Sure.
And I know we ran through this morning in pre-council. So the 11,100 and you're going to make me get my glasses. 167,000 and change. That's on top of the 50 million we've already got, correct?
Right. This is an amendment to that $50 million agreement that I think was passed in February of 2022.
Okay, thanks. And because you were running through a lot of numbers, and sometimes I got to slow down just to make sure. No, that's okay. You do a good job, and that's the only question I had for you. I appreciate your efforts and Match. And I know Councilmember Melton has spent time helping people that are getting evicted, and I would venture to say that it's still an issue with people facing eviction. So this money is desperately needed for everyday poor and middle-class wage earners that are having trouble meeting their rent and utility assistance. So I'll definitely be supporting this today, and thanks for your work on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Milton, you're recognized.
And actually, now that you said that, I think just last week, I think last Wednesday, there were 48 cases scheduled just on one day. I mean, so I'm just giving you, it's a couple hundred a week, I think, is what they're averaging at this point. I hope to get back to doing that, but I just wanted to be clear. So when you apply for match funds, it has to go through both the renter and the landlord have to fill out information. Once that information, and by the way, thank you, Match, for making it easier for people to do it with their phones and take pictures. So you don't have to have a fax machine or have to scan. You can take pictures, but it requires both. And then the money is paid directly from Match to the landlord. All of the money goes directly to the landlord or the utilities. It does not go to the person. It gets paid on behalf of the person. So that's, I think there may be some exceptions if you're getting into, but if a landlord's owed money and we're trying to keep them in, it goes directly to the landlord.
Correct.
When you have both of them. If you're trying to get maybe into a new place, we also, what we're trying to do is use some of the money to help with maybe storage and moving and some of those secondary expenses.
Correct.
So that's, I just kind of wanted to be clear when we say, this actually helps both renters and landlords who both owe money because it just costs money to live and keep a shelter over your house, and the landlords have mortgages that they've got to pay too. And if the landlords can't pay their mortgage, then they're getting foreclosed on, and then those people are getting evicted as well. So really what we're trying to do is prevent homelessness and try and keep people where they are. But also, once you've been approved once, we are allowing a second time at this point, but it's not something that's just continual that somebody can just live on, which I think some people had made those comments that somebody is basically, you're just paying for it in perpetuity. Then it's not happening that way.
No, there's a set time frame.
You can only get 15 months of total assistance, 3 forward and 12 in arrears.
Okay, and I just wanted to be clear because we've had those cases where they can't use the match funding again. And I also wanted to be clear that this isn't approving the acceptance of the money. We already have the money. The Omaha has the money, so the city accepted it. And so now all this is doing today is saying where it's gonna go so that we can give it out, because the city is not doing it. What we've done is contracted with Match to provide that service for us because they already had the system in place, and it would cost the city of Omaha a lot more money if we just duplicated what Match already had. And I think Match has done a great job about making sure all the paperwork is filled out from both sides and making sure the money is going where it has. You're very good at checking up on that because I've actually seen it firsthand. So I appreciate the efforts so that we know that the money that is being spent the way it should be. And by the way, it's also, we can't use the money for anything but what the federal government allows us to do. It's just for a very limited purpose. It can only be used for rent, utilities, and some prevention of homelessness. I mean, we have a little bit of a window of what we can use it for, but for the most part, it's just on a list of specific things that we can use it for. So it can't be used for anything else. Correct. So, thank you.
Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had asked a few questions in pre-council. Bill, did you ever get any information?
Thank you for asking those questions. Heather did actually put some information together to share with you today. So if Heather, you could talk over that a little bit.
I can. So I believe you requested information on how much we've spent. In regards to utility, OPPD, we've spent 2.1 million, a little over 2.1 million. MUD, we've spent 1.7 million in regards to the utility assistance. We are currently actively working with both parties to get an efficient way to process disconnects at this time. So that's still to come. We're still working on that.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Let me back this up a little bit for those that weren't there. So this certainly isn't about the approval of this. We certainly know it's needed. The administrator And there's two parts. There's a rental part, which you got a roof over your head, which is most important. But there's another part of that as well, and that's your utilities, your gas, water, and your electricity. Because we don't live in a third world country here, and we should be able to help those that are in need for this assistance. But my question all along has been in communication with the providers we have in the area, and I'm not calling them out, but it is what it is. It's MUD and OPBD. Them are the only two we have here, unless you get further out of Omaha. And my question all along has been the process. How do people who show up to the window that say I don't have money to pay my utilities help me? Are they guided to another window? Are they given them a form? Walk me through the process of how this works with Match.
So yeah, so I can talk to that because I came from United Way 211. So all of the client support entry, like the customer service reps, are at both MUD and OPPD, are educated on the different various resources in the community. So it's not just one resource that they're referring to. They're referring to 211 and Match.
Okay, and so I walk up to the window.
Mm-hmm.
I need some help with my utilities. What do they give them a piece of paper? Is there another window to go to? How does this work?
Yeah, they basically just give them the resource that they need to go and contact United Way at 211 or go online and apply through matchconnect.org. So it's primarily the 211 resource that is given.
Okay.
And those individuals help walk an individual through the process of if it's just a utility application or if it's a financial request for the rental assistance.
How long does that process take?
Seconds if they call 211.
So if they show up in their arrears, we're going to help them with the 12 months previous, and then we're going to help them 3 months forward.
So specifically for utilities.
Yeah, I want to talk about utilities.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's completely separate now from the process. So it doesn't go through a financial request. So if it's only utilities, we're able to process those quicker. And if they have a disconnect, then we're able to do a promise to pay through the match.com or Match Connect email. So then they'll be notified if we have a person that has a disconnect that we can stop that disconnect.
So if I show up, and I'm not beating you up over this.
No. I completely understand.
People want to know. We have, look, here's how this works. You can have the money, but it doesn't mean it's that easy. There's still a process. So, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because I know with reaching out to the utility companies, we're still shutting people off. And that's discouraging because this rental assistance and utility assistance has been here in place, money in the bank, for a long time.
Correct.
So somewhere we're losing people along the way with either them not being aware that this is available or somewhere to where they show up, whether it's in the summer, you need some air, obviously you need water, you have kids, heat in the winter. Somewhere there's a breakdown of not getting the information out. And with 50 million before, another 11 million now. Are we using money for messaging on that this resource is available? So if I show up and I don't have gas and water in my house, I show up to the window, it's shut off already. How long does it take to get my gas and water taken care of, knowing this money's here available for me?
Couple of days. Because we do have to ensure that the individual qualifies at a point.
Okay.
But that is removed again from those specialist cases. So we have a utility specialist that is reviewing those cases specifically. The disconnects are prioritized, so they review those in a different sense. It was great when we had the zip code proxy because that's helping us remove some of those barriers in regards to documentation for income so that we don't have to have that component. So if they meet the 4 criteria components of they live in the city of Omaha, they are the qualified, they live in that facility or location, and then the income zip code. So And then they're able to either get a promise to pay, which happens in seconds, because we all have communications with those set people at those utility companies that can turn it back on.
Okay. Is there a
MUD
pro-
is a little bit, it's not as quick of a turn on that OPPD. OPPD can flip a switch.
Sure.
MUD is a little bit longer of a turnaround for disconnects, unfortunately, if they're already in shut off.
So is there two different people for the rental aspect and the utility aspect? Or do you show up for rental assistance and it's also check a box because I need utility assistance?
It's a separate process for utility that is streamlined. It's still getting processed through the whole component. So there are in-person locations that can process the financial assistance, and then there's remote folks that are working on those cases as well.
What's the balance of the first 50 million that was approved by the council?
I think that last I talked to Match, we had spent approximately 10 million of that original 50 from February, that 50 million.
So there's
40 million left, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to throw another number in there. So out of the 10 million, if you're saying 2.1 million went to MUD and or vice versa, and 1.7 went to OPBD, so almost $4 million to utilities out of the 10.
Well, I'm sorry. This is
That's comprehensive.
this is
So-
all time. This is the entire
Correct.
50 million that we've already spent to this point. About $4 million has gone to OPPD and MUD.
Correct.
I think of the last quarter, out of the 50 million that we just got, I think it was
Sorry,
like,
Bill, back me up.
Yep.
Because nobody's following the math, including me. How much money has Match received? And how much money has Match spent so far to reimburse MUD and OPBD? And you'll get the point I'm trying to make here on why I think there's a disconnect, literally.
well, what would I have to do? I made a little chart for you.
And they only spent 4 on utilities? Where's the rest of the money?
So this is the money that we've received, once it gets in focus. Quarter 1, 2021, we had $22 million of ERA1, which expires in 2022. 50 million in quarter 1 of 2022, and then hopefully today, 11 million of ERA1. ERA2 back in quarter 3 of 2021, 16.98. So out of this total $100 million, which is here on the right, it's $4 million have gone to OPPD and MUD so far.
So when we first got briefed on this, and I said how important it is to work with the utility companies, because there's a lot of people without gas and water and power right now, but there's money in the bank to pay for this.
Yes.
So again, I'm not beating you up, I'm gonna approve it, but where's all the money going if 4 million went to utility assistance and this is what's been spent? And there's people in this community right now that don't have utilities on, that are renters. Like where does it go?
Primarily to financial assistance for your rental assistance. That is the primary focus.
Okay, 4 million for utilities, how much has been spent on rental?
Well, of the about 50 million that's been spent in total so far, it'd be, well, like admin's in there too. I don't really know how much admin matches used
about
off the top of my head.
39 million? 30,
No, that's
or
not.
38
Oh,
million?
it's spent altogether,
Altogether.
minus admin?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So she's got the number right on.
Okay,
I mean,
Heather,
I'd
let
have
me
to-
hear that on the record. What you have, what you spent, what's been used for rental, what's been used for utility, and how much has been spent on admin?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So more's been spent on admin than people getting their utilities reconnected.
No. No.
So
We have
Councilman Palermo
not
has the
spent-
floor.
Yeah, I don't need any help with this. I can figure it out. My point is, MUD is currently shutting people off.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're all business owners or homeowners. I have to assume some of them are rental people as well. So let's spend some money to get the word out that the money is here, not just on admin costs, but money in the community to say, hey, we have this money, now we have more money. If you're in need of it, it should be generated and going in that direction. And that's my point of my discussion today. I wish you would have had the numbers a little more clear on what we have, what was spent, and a simple breakdown. We're talking $100 million here.
Sure.
We're not talking a couple $100,000. We're talking $100 million. When you come and present in front of us, you should have this broke down much better than this. I'm just being honest. And there's people right now, I know, that are getting shut off that could be using this money. So we'll sit here and approve more money, and people aren't going to have utilities. We got to do a better job. $100 million.
We do start an advertising campaign this week, is that correct? With eCreative. There'll be notices going out, more information going out to the public like we did last summer. So we are working on a new round of advertising.
Money's available, you should be continuing to advertise, just like we have openings at the city, and we should continue to advertise there's openings at the city. You started with $22 million. As much money should have been spent on telling people it's there so it's able to be used, because the math isn't adding up. But I know it's for a good cause overall, but as people are listening, they're wondering, why only this amount for utility assistance?
I mean, part of it is basically
Bill,
what
can you
people
be
are
by
applying for.
Hey, Bill.
Correct.
Can you move to the microphone a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, basically, that's what people are applying for. So working with MUD and OPPD, we can definitely work on that to make sure that they are conveying that message, that there's help out there as well, which is obviously your concern. So if we need to push them a little bit to make sure they convey that message to people they're shutting off, happy to do that. And we can provide any kind of accounting information that City Council might want to acquire or need. I mean, we have all that. We report it to the Treasury on a quarterly basis, so it's all there, and I can provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This question is for the match. Where are you located at?
We're located at 6001 Dodge Street. So it is in the UNO Community Engagement Center.
And you mentioned you had other sites or locations where one could come in and apply?
Yes, so we have 5 partners. Family Housing Advisory Service is a new one. United Way, Together, Community Alliance, and Lutheran Family Services. United Way and Lutheran are both remote, so you can't go to their locations. Together is taking in-person applications. Community Alliance is also taking in-person applications. And then 211 helps individuals that have difficulty accessing technology.
And then you mention Family Housing and Advisory Service is a new location?
It is a new partner, correct.
And when did they become new?
They became new this last week.
Okay, so they just got on board?
Correct.
All right, and then the next question is to Bill.
Yes.
You mentioned that you guys are going to start doing more advertisement. Can you tell me the various platforms that you'll use to do that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. Heather might have that. I know that there's going to be social media. Are we doing billboards and bus benches again? Is that correct? TV and radio? We did last time. So,
correct.
Okay.
It's all of the above.
In English and Spanish?
And current.
In current.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Wanted to let people know the easiest thing to do is to do 211. Like when you say, why are people getting their power shut off? Mr. Palermo, I really encourage them to do 211. And the reason I say that is match can't necessarily help everybody because they're just for the rental. So if you own your home, 211 can then direct you. So there's other utility help out there. So 211 is the easiest way to go. And then the 211 person can direct you to match or help with match, or the utility companies have their own. And then also United Way 211 can do that. Because I've also had people use the 211 because they own their homes. And so I just want to make it clear that match is just one of those tools, but the 211 would be better. And then it's so easy to tell people, call 211. Like, everybody in here, if you know somebody, just say, call 211, because they can actually help. And I have had the United Way people on a Friday night stay until 6:30 until they made sure that they had the person's power turned back on. So that 211 number, although it's not, I know, affiliated with Match, it is the great almost starting point, because then if the person qualifies for Match, that 211 person can help set them up with Match as well. And we're encouraging that too, to do that before you get to court, so that we're not applying for the match downstairs in the courthouse like 10 minutes after court starts too. So that 211 is really like the best way to get it out to people for help.
Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I know OPPD, that, as Councilmember Melton said, the 211 is a good resource to help people if their power is shut off. And there's an event that we have every year through the building trades in Omaha, Blue Collar Boxing, that raises a bunch of money to support the 211 program, which is a tremendous asset in our community. And I know also if people get a disconnect notice, I can speak for OPPD, that they can call our contact center, and they can direct them to 211 or several financial resources that can help assist them with their utility bills. So I think that's important, that there are those tools out there, but as Councilmember, my colleague, Councilmember Palermo said, it can never be advertised enough. There's tens of millions of dollars here that maybe people in our communities aren't getting the message on that. So I'm confident that you guys will take that and elevate it to make sure it gets sent out to the public. In spite of the 211 resource and others, people can never have enough information, especially when they're struggling to pay their utility bills and the cost of everything is going up. So again, thanks for what you're doing. We're not criticizing you. We just want to make it better for our constituents to get applying to these resources that can help them when they're in desperate need, oftentimes when their power or water and gas get shut off. So again, thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to be clear, it isn't what the money is going for, it's the messaging. I reached out to 4 people that I know at MUD that their primary job is they're collectors. They shut people's gas and water off from our 10:30 meeting until today, before this meeting. Not one of them 4 had ever heard of Match or even knew that this rental assistance was out there. These are the people that show up and deal face-to-face with the customer that say, hey, I'm sorry you haven't paid your bill, but we're here to shut it off. If there was a better messaging, what I'm saying with the utility companies, like, this is your job, not mine. But if it was my job, I would make it very clear that every one of my customer service techs, everybody in the field would have the information handy to say, hey, I'm here to shut you off, but guess what? Because of the city of Omaha and the federal government, here, call this number. We're going to give you some time because maybe you will qualify and apply and I won't have to do it. But it's not being done. So there's a gap, and I'm trying to figure out how we close this gap. Now, this is the same thing that I brought up when this money was first available for Match. I said, what are we doing for communication with the utility companies? Well, we're going to be in communication with them. Well, you're not. We're not. And I'll say we're not, because we're approving this funding. It's that simple. Get a hold of somebody at MUD. There's one department, probably at OPPD as well, that takes care of shutting people off. They don't send somebody who does gas leaks to shut your gas and water off. They send a collector. That means there's a number of people that their job, their union job that they're required to do is to shut your utilities off. And if they don't know, then we're not doing it right. That's all I'm saying. It's that simple. Use the money where it's supposed to be used. I understand everybody has to keep their doors open and your lights on at your own place of business, but the money's supposed to be used for rental and utility assistance. And these techs out in the field don't know it's available.
Thank you. I do think we can do a better job at that, it sounds like, and emphasizing the utility assistance that comes along with this money, but I don't want to be lost in this conversation that I do think the planning department and Match has done a great job with this program. When we look at the money the City of Omaha has applied for and received and is now dispersing, we successfully applied for 2 rounds of funding very early on, before most cities ever did. We applied for $50 million in state money that was declined by the state, and we said, thank you, we'll take that and apply for that money. We know we have those huge needs. And now this next $11 million is additional money we didn't anticipate, but applied for because some other communities must have declined this money. So I do want to thank Mr. Lukash and Heather with Match for being on the ball and seeking those funds, because I think they have been very important and obviously are very needed in our community, given how fast you've received requests and how fast you've been able to disperse these funds, even if we can do a little bit better job with utilities and that rental assistance balance. So with that, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion? Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 34 is approved, 7-0. Item 36, a resolution to approve the nomination of John Beasley Street as a commemorative street name on 30th Street and Lake Street to Grant Street, from Lake Street to Grant Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 36 is today. I'll take the proponents. I think we have some proponents and maybe some family members here that want to speak. Yeah, please come down. This is on the John Beasley Street renaming. Yep. Mr. Hamilton, you get to go first.
Willie Hamilton, 4200 North 30th Street. John Beasley Theater has been an iconic theater for a long time. It was closed over in South Omaha. We thought we were going to move it over in North Omaha, but wasn't able to do that. But John has helped so many people of color get into the acting space that is phenomenal. And we believe this is a no-brainer to be able to get this street naming and get this thing passed. So I would like for you guys to approve this and get it done.
Agreed. Thank you. Other proponents that want to speak today in favor of this? Seeing none, any opponents?
Gotta put my hat on when I come to work. So, Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. Mr. John Beasley been a great mentor for myself, but I want to go back for a second to Mr. Frank Brown when he named the park after Miss Gabrielle Union. Then I want to go back to the class I had up at the Civic Center. They said, and Mayor Fay, he's involved with this as well. They said we keep naming streets, and my good friend, Mr. Gene Haynes, all these classes I took, they said when you name streets after people that's alive, on top of it, and they commit a serious crime, do you take the street name down or do you wait till they pass? It's been always a debate. So, but I think the last resolution of Mayor Stauffer putting some of those slumlords in jail might be the best solution to the other problem. So I think Mr. Beasley is a good man. If I was him, I would wait till I go inside the ground in case I make a mistake.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Good afternoon. I'm Phyllis Mitchell Butler. I am an actor in this city. I'm not opposing naming the street, but I am questioning why the LaFern Williams Center has not been asked. The center in LaFern Williams Center has not been asked to. Why have they not asked to rename that street? I guess that would be my question to you.
Okay. Can I answer that? And just your address for the record, please, ma'am? Your address for the record, too?
2011 Florence Mills Plaza, Omaha 68110.
Okay. Thank you. Let me first finish with any other opponents today on number 36. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
It's Phyllis Butler.
Great, thank you. I know Ms. Johnson has her light on. Do you want to call up Mr. Hamilton? or-
Yes, Mr. Hamilton, if you would come up and answer Ms. Hicks' question.
Great question. I actually reached out to John and his son Tyrone, and John feels connected to North Omaha. So he petitioned me to make sure we do it in North Omaha and not in South Omaha.
Okay, thank you.
More than welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else coming? Okay. All right, first of all, I just want to let you guys know that for many of you, you might not know this, but early on in Mr. Beasley's career, he used to work at Union Pacific. And he, at that time, was tinkering with acting and wasn't very sure where he would go with that because he was a family man and he wanted to take care of his family. And my aunt was a mentor of his, and she encouraged him to seek that acting job. And voila, he's now an actor here, not only in Omaha, but across the United States. So yes, this is a great opportunity for North Omaha, and really excited to have this being brought forth to us today. I move that we approve this.
Motion and a second. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. And we discussed this in pre-council this morning. John Beasley, I've never met him, but I actually met him. He used to work out at the YMCA when I'd be down there, and anybody that knows me knows I'm a Notre Dame fan. And I wanted to make clear that the resolution did mention that John was in the movie Rudy. And when I'd be working out at the YMCA, I'm looking at this great big guy in tremendous shape, and he's running around. I go, that can't be the guy that was in Rudy. And then as I learned later on that it was John Beasley, and I actually was a meter reader, I read his meter where he lived. So I never met him, but I been a fan of his. And he went to Tech High School where my mother taught in the mid-'60s, like from 62 to 65. So it's a great honor for a great Omaha man that has given a lot to the community, especially in North Omaha. So I'll be glad to support this from a Tech High Trojan and a Notre Dame football coach in spirit. So thanks.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 36 is approved, 7-0. Item 42, a resolution to approve 46 agreements with the hotels that applied for and qualified for assistance under ARPA.
Public hearing and vote on number 42 is today. We'll have first a short presentation, I think, by Ms. Ward and maybe Mr. Curtis, as this is a agenda item pertaining to ARPA funding and hotel applications. And then we'll take proponents and opponents after that.
Thank you. Deborah Ward, the Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau, 306 South 10th Street. Appropriate that this resolution comes before you during National Travel and Tourism Week. Wasn't planned, but very, very nice to have it done during that week. Our organization has spent over a year researching the impacts of the pandemic and working with the Mayor's Office, the City Finance Department, City Legal, and Deloitte on the hotel stimulus program. And you guys were all gracious enough to indulge us with briefings in January, which was much appreciated. For the Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau to do its job, we need a healthy hotel industry. It's just fundamental to the success of tourism. The COVID-19 pandemic created a loss of more than $343 million in visitor spending in 2020 in Omaha, with hotels among the hardest hit. Hotel revenue dropped by 51%. $113 million compared to 2019, wiping out more than a decade of growth. In 2021, hotel revenue was still down 8%, or $18 million compared to 2019. Each hotel has their own story. There are hotels where sidewalks and parking lots need fixing, rooms that are in need of repair, HVAC and ventilation systems that need replacing. That means electricians, plumbers, concrete and carpet layers need to be hired. So the money that we're talking about in the hotel stimulus program is true stimulus. And the Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau is not alone in our support. I would like to ask anyone here today who supports this resolution to please stand up. This group represents 46 Omaha hotel properties that qualified to receive money through the hotel stimulus program and met the ARPA guidelines put forth by the federal government. 46 Omaha businesses that employ thousands of people in our community and in every one of your districts. Hotels on the list to receive money are located throughout the city and represent the smallest properties with just 15 rooms to some of the largest properties with 300 to 600 rooms, and all of those in between. And the hotels not represented in this room today are still challenged with staff shortages. And we just came off a busy Berkshire Hathaway weekend, so they're either recovering or still working. When the pandemic hit, hotels were forced to lay off or furlough a majority of their staff. Hotels that normally employ 150 people were operating with 10. Last year, while still battling some staff shortages, Omaha hosted, if you remember, the Omaha NCAA Volleyball Bubble Event, along with U.S. Olympic Swim Trials, a record-breaking CWS, the U.S. Senior Open, and more. Yet these folks here managed to do it, and do it successfully. That is a real tribute to the caliber and work ethic of all of you folks. So we thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, the hotel industry is fundamental to the success of tourism, and tourism is an integral part of our city's economy and important to Omaha's continued recovery. And this program will help give back a portion of what the pandemic took away. In closing, in addition to the City Finance and Law Department, I would like to take an opportunity to say a special thanks to Alex Fanslaw, Noah Moriano, Nicole Sweeney, Amber Parker, Bernard Indenbosch, and the staff at Deloitte. This team painstakingly went through hundreds of pages of ARPA requirements and dozens of revisions to the hotel stimulus program documents to ensure this project met all of the federal ARPA guidelines and provided much needed support to the tourism community. So, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I think there's somebody else who wants to speak too.
Thank you. Hopefully not 46 other testifiers, but we'll take we'll take other proponents today. Let the record reflect there were about 46 people in support who stood up. Go ahead.
Well, good afternoon. Robert Sabin at 7818 Shirley Street, Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm here as a representative of the president of the MHA, Metro Hospitality Association, as well as the general manager of the Hilton Omaha. It is a great honor to be in front of you today because this has been an extremely hard last 2 years for our business. While Deb went through the kind of the top line numbers there, I will tell you in 2020 itself, it was close to 90% reduction in revenues once the pandemic hit in April. And those reductions were just absolutely detrimental to so many things that really drive not only the tourism and the hospitality market, but also a lot of what brings Omaha to life. And seeing people come from out of town and enjoying what Omaha is was devastated through that. We are, at the Hilton Omaha, we had to go through an extensive application process. Definitely been in 35 years of hospitality business. It is one of the most extensive applications that we've ever had to go through, and it should be. And the 46 applicants that went through it, it took a while, but they knew the positive impact this can help to resurrect this industry, and we are here in support of that. I'm open to any questions as well.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I was wanting to share another story of Mr. Begley. 1967.
So Donnie, you have to keep it to this agenda item, which is about hotels and ARPA funding.
Mr. Fredden, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
We're way ahead of you on this process. So in the meantime, 1967, I worked at Todd Restaurant. I used to car hop for Nick Nolte, which is a nice guy. But back to my point in the hotel, I think you should have passed this because me and President Trump was in the process of opening a hotel in Lagos, Nigeria, and then they fired him right in the middle of our negotiation. So I would get this done right away because this is a problem because Trump and I had agreement with Nigeria, but right now we don't know when another pandemic or whatever is going to pop up. So I suggest you folks pass it today.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette, Omaha. I'm going to enter that into the record for today and for last week. I'm against this because, once again, I don't think there's enough information. ARPA funds. ARPA. Everybody's running to get ARPA, and there's lots of news stories on 60 Minutes, various other things. Not my words, but there's a lot of fraud in it. In the cities and counties and states that are running for the money, which is taxpayer dollars that I help pay, are maybe going to hold some people who are extremely accountable if they find out there's some funny business going on. I'm not to say that the hotel owners, property owners are not deserving of this. But I wonder, for example, now, who's going to take some of the money out of there for administrating it? Does somebody get a pocket out of that? That was a question on the last item, too, that I forgot to ask. How much do we pay for administrating these funds? That's money that doesn't go to them, and that's money out of my pocket that I'll never get back. So we need a little more discussion. I guess the only way we get discussion is for some of us to challenge your things when there is a public hearing, so that you'll try to cover CYA, excuse the words, on the whole thing, because there's just not enough in the newspaper. It wasn't written in the Reader magazine or some of these community reporters, I guess you might say they are, like this young gentleman that sits behind me. Maybe he isn't currently reporting and earning money doing that, but he has been in the past. He's written articles about this body. And he does not disclose that he is. If he is, he does not disclose it. That's one reason I submitted that, is some of my complaints that have not been answered and some of these things that are not really discussed. That's a lot of money. $100 million a few minutes ago, too. That's a lot of money. But what's not talked about is who gets a piece of that for administrating it. Yes, they may be deserving, but once again, how about some single landowners, I'm not one, but I might be, that don't get any help? There's a lot of so-called slum landlords out there, that you people like to call it, Mr. Ben Gray did anyway, that are not getting this money. How about them? Let's talk about them too. Landlords that are necessarily suffering also. Thank you.
Other opponents today?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I do write about civic engagement, and I would feel not in.
Hey, Luis, you don't need to address that. We're just talking about hotels here.
Okay, well, I oppose this in protest. This is not my item, okay, and this is why I can write about it. But I'm not disagreeing with how the money is being spent. I think I want to protest because Omaha needs to diversify the economy and not just only focus on segments. So the tourism has the right to operate, and I support the expenditure, especially for the HVAC. Having cleaner air, maybe more in public spaces, would be something to do. But I think that diversifying the Omaha economy is important. You saw how fragile tourism is when there's a pandemic, especially if it lasts for a few years. A lot of money was lost. So, but anyway, good luck to everybody as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to do is move the approval of 42.
Second.
And then just a couple of highlights. I think that one of the reasons this is being presented to us in the way it is, rather than having each one of the 46 agreements come to us for approval, gives us the blanket approval so that when those receipts are submitted, they can be paid right away and not have to be further delayed. And they've, as has been pointed out by both Ms. Ward and Mr. Saban, the application process has been fully vetted and scrutinized, and there are procedures in place to make sure that they're adhered to, and so I think we're comfortable in that situation. I also wanted, actually, to Luis's last point, or at least I think part of his last point I wanted to touch on was that, and Deb pointed this out too, I mean, this truly is stimulus. Not only does it help stand back up the tourism industry, but all the work that goes into that to stand that up with the trades, with the HVAC technicians, with the carpet layers, with the concrete layers, with that truly is the stimulus that we need to not only stand this industry up, but also for those supporting roles that will go with their efforts will go into that to make that possible. So I'm very supportive of this. This has been a long process, but one that I think is a very good use of the funds. And actually, just to note that the pool that was allocated for this, not all the hotels went through the application process for that. So what we had originally budgeted for this part of the funds will then be able to go back into the pot, so to speak, so that they can be reallocated or reassigned to other needed projects, because we had a lot more asked than we did ARPA funds to invest in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Deb, a quick question for you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You talked about the occupancy rates or the job numbers in the hotels. Where are they at before pre-COVID to now? I know it's picking up. Have we caught up even close to where we were before?
Can we just compare it last weekend to last?
Well, I know last weekend was good.
Last week, we're anticipating this year at the end of 2022 to be just shy of 2019 numbers.
Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate you answering that, because in pre-council, and my friend Councilmember Harding did a good job of articulating what we had discussed in pre-council, where if anybody in the public wants to go look at this document, it's attached to the agenda item 42, and it's 1,270 pages. So to translate that for people here and listening today, that it's for all the improvements that Councilmember Harding talked about, and those are jobs that are invested in the community. Mm-hmm. And it also has been vetted by, I'm probably going to miss part of it, but Deloitte & Touche and our law department, and also guidance from the Treasury Department. So when a 1,270 page document is put out, and the time is invested from all of our subject matter experts on this, and as Councilmember Harding mentioned, all that money that was allotted was not spent, correct? What was it? What it's?
There was $7 million allocated.
Okay,
and that would have given
489,600 is what's being not to exceed that today, right?
Right.
Okay, so the demand was out there, and 46 participants requested money on this that are being granted today if we vote on it. Yes. And again, that's about jobs. It's about a lot of things, but as you and I had a nice conversation in my office, it seemed like a long time ago, but I remember it well, and you laid out clearly that it's not just giving money to hotels, but it's to get them back on their feet, and the people that lost their jobs in the hospitality industry, the hotel industry, that hopefully it does go back to how it was when Berkshire was here last weekend, and the good work you're doing. It keeps it rolling forward. But again, it's about jobs and getting wage earners back on their feet. And hopefully this will certainly help that going forward. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah, close to 18,000 people depend on tourism for their livelihoods.
It's a lot of people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank you for the work on this. I did want to ask Director Curtis about the ARPA funding the city has received. What do we have currently in the bank that we received?
Steve Curtis, City Finance. We received 56 million. We anticipate getting another 56 million at the end of May.
Okay, thank you for that. So we got 56 million so far in ARPA money. It shows you how important the hospitality industry is. Is that the right word to cover everybody in the room? Hospitality.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't want to offend anybody and say you forgot me. How important you are to the city, because we got 56 million so far in the bank. We assume we're going to get more, but we can't spend it until we have it. And I will tell you in the beginning, Amber's in the back, Amber Parker with grants. We got a lot of updates on how the money was going to be spent. And I did kind of scratch my head on this one thinking, hotels, what? But then we forgot. We forgot about they were basically closed down for a couple of years and nobody was there. And then you have to reel yourself back in and remember this, and I don't want to say cash register of the city, but truly the hospitality industry is how we get people to the city to stay in our hotels, to spend money in restaurants. And back to the 56 million to show how important it is, and I'll get it wrong, but I think 10 million we gave to United Way, 8 or 9 million for OCF. We got some money set aside for housing, but 7 million for tourism. I mean, this is out of the gate one of the most important things we talked about, how to spend this ARPA money. So we know and we care at the city. If you think about that, some of the very first things we talked about with grants was tourism. So hold tight, stay working. We'll try to find you some employees however we can. But I just wanted to let you know how important you are to us as a city and how this ranks with how we were dispersing this money.
Thank you. I know
Deb.
that they appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melton.
Yes, thank you. You know, so often you see people pass on votes. It's like that you might think that they just don't care or they're neutral. I have to pass today because I have a conflict, not because I don't support it. But my husband did invest in one of the hotels right before COVID because he really knows how to pick investments. But we, you know, but I just wanted you to know I'm not passing on the vote because I don't care, because it's not something I wanted to say yes or no on, as sometimes people in the legislature do. I'm passing on it because it's considered a conflict, and they frown on that with politicians. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. And I want to just thank all you guys for everything that you've done over the last couple of years, and that you've really fought through it. You've really fought through the COVID. So thank you for what you've done. And Mr. Palermo's right. I mean, you're the ones that we count on. You're the ones that sell our city. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. And Deb, maybe just a couple last comments here before we take a vote. I seconded the motion because I do support this, and we took it off consent agenda today, not because I didn't think we would all support this, which I think we're about to do, but because this is important to have this conversation and recognize our folks and our partners in economic development. Pleased to see you all here too, and I'm sure you're still catching up on some rest from last weekend, but that was awesome to see all those visitors back to Omaha again. That hadn't happened in a long time, from all over the country and all over the world, staying at the facilities we're talking about here today. And the other reason to take this off the consent agenda was because with all ARPA funds that has come to the city, I think it is the council's fiduciary responsibility to look at these in the fine print, make sure it's going well, make sure it is accounted for. And so to some of the questions that came up this afternoon about who's accounting for this and how's it going to go, I just want folks to know that we are asking those questions and did discuss that this morning. And to Mr. Begley's point, this is a over 1,000-page document anyone can see on our agenda, public agenda today. And those applications are very detailed in nature for each of these awards. There was no favoritism on your part. It was built on a formula for hotel rooms.
Absolutely.
46 applicants representing about 5,612 rooms. And these grants award are ranging from about $12,000 up to $480,000 based on that formula. That list is also in our paperwork and readily accessible by anybody. And then to the question of who will monitor this going forward, that these funds are expended and spent in the way that they were applied for. We talked about that this morning too, and I wanted to give you a chance just to address that as well.
Yeah, there's quarterly reporting required from all of the hotels, and that goes up to city finance.
So both you and Mr. Curtis will be monitoring those applications and those quarterly reports to make sure what they do is what we're approving today.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. No further lights? Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
I'm going to go ahead and approve this, or go yes for this. But I do want to mention that there is an industry that we have not looked at or considered during the COVID period, and that is the small business with less than 10 employees. I think this council should consider providing a benefit to those groups. And just like the hotel industry, they suffered a loss, and yet they're still in our economy. So with that being in mind, I do want that information on the books in terms of my remarks to indicate that small business, less than 10 employees, suffered a loss too, and we should consider that. But for now, I'll go ahead and vote aye for this. Thanks.
Melton. Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Melton. Pass. Motion, item 42 is approved, 6-0. Melton abstains.
Next item.
Item 43, an ordinance to accept the bid from the office cleaners for janitorial services for the traffic maintenance facility at a cost of $11,260 per year. Is communication in opposition?
Public hearing on number 43 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 44, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Lynn Vinduska for stabilized
One moment. Were you coming down on number 43, sir? Yes. Okay. With the room being emptied there, I didn't have a chance to see you, so we'll definitely revisit that.
problem.
Are you a proponent or an opponent?
Opponent.
Okay. So we'll have an opponent now to number 43.
Yes. Rodney Johnson, 6716 North Ridge Drive, Omaha, Nebraska. Census tract 61.02. Opponent, I believe that an approval of a Tier 2 contractor on this project would be in direct defiance of Omaha Municipal Code 10-200.3, Section D, where the priorities were set. So make it short and quick.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other opponents today on this? Seeing none, I will close public hearing. Yes. Mr. Fitzer, I see from Public Works is here. Would you like to address that issue or that concern? If you're not,
Well, could you repeat what you're wanting further addressed? I apologize.
yeah, it was a concern about the selection of the contractor in this instance as it applies to, I believe it's our SEB program, and I think that was the concern expressed by the opponent. So I think what we're wanting to know is were the right procedures followed, and was everyone given that opportunity?
Yeah, everybody was given the opportunity when Todd Fitzer, Public Works, everybody was given the opportunity when we bid a project like this, Councilman. So the rules are set forth. We open the bids in accordance to the city charter and go through that. So there was ample opportunity given for everybody to compete for this bid.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that I was going to ask the same thing at Public Works on, and if I could, Mr. Fitzer, you said everybody was given equal opportunity for the bid. Do you recall, and you may not, was the bid denied based on the application? Was it not the lowest bid, or was there a problem with the bid submission?
I do not have that information on this particular item. I most certainly can gather that information to get back with you, but I'm not aware in this instance if that was the case.
Okay. I was wondering if Mr. Johnson was going to show up today, and I almost asked him pre-council, having read through this. But since it's public hearing, and he did show up and mention he was opposed to it, we will certainly bring it up next week for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have one more week on this one, so to be continued. Thank you. Mr. Harding, were you on this?
Note that I believe the office cleaners were the lowest bid on it.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Clerk.
Item 44, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Lynn Vandeska for stabilized sewage sludge.
Public hearing on number 44 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 45, an ordinance to approve the Abbott Drive Industrial Building Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement.
Public hearing on number 45 is today. Proponents, please.
Thank you, President Festerson, members of the Omaha City Council. My name's Jim Lang. I'm an attorney at 8526 F Street. I represent the applicant, F&J Enterprises, Inc. F&J's principal is Frank Creechy. This is for a 150,000 square foot warehouse, state-of-the-art warehouse by the airport at 5906 Abbott Street. We were before you about 2 months ago on the redevelopment plan, and this council went ahead and approved that at this time. So I'm here to answer any questions. So we appreciate your support on this project. We think it's going to be a great project for the airport area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 46, an ordinance to approve the MH Landing Lot 4 Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Proponents, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brett Beller, 1140 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant MH Ozone 2. Speaking of hotels, this plan was before you a couple months ago as well. New Fairfield Inn, if you remember the Cocoa Keys redevelopment on 72nd, about the interstate, a very important intersection in our city. This will be the first project coming out of there. So this will be on Lot 4. It'll be 85 rooms, a new hotel to revitalize this area. So we're excited to get going. This will be, as I said, the catalyst for everything else going on there. So here for any questions.
Thanks. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Are you on number 46, Larry?
46.
All right. Are you an opponent?
Opponent.
Go ahead.
Of course, I'm an opponent to another TIF without further information. South 72nd Street, the only hotel in Water Park I can think of was on the left. Used to be the couple of other things. And they've changed it a couple of times, and now we're doing it again. Or is this on the other side of the viaduct at the old Ozone Lounge? That hasn't been described here as to what property exactly that is. Hotel and Water Park, I guess, is before the viaduct. Seems like a pretty good site. I think we need more discussion on it, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Item 47.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Harding.
Yeah, there. The information. The information is all available online. It gives the address, has a site plan, all that information is there.
Thank you. Agreed. Next item.
Item 47, an ordinance to authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Chief School Bus, Inc. to provide bus service transportation for summer recreation programs.
Public hearing and vote, or public hearing on number 47 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 48 through 62, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on an agenda for consideration.
Second, roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:59.